So you clicked on this video because you're wondering how I made $27,000 in just 30 days. That is not clickbait. I absolutely did make $27,000 profit, money in my pocket, in just 30 days. And the way that I've done it is repeatable, and you can do it too. I'm Simply Shauna, and this YouTube channel is all about how to build a passive stream of income by opening an Etsy shop. Don't worry, it's okay if you don't have a business degree. I didn't either. You don't need one. And connecting it with a print-on-demand company. That's a company that prints your items for you and ships them out. And I started following this business model just a little over 2 years ago, and I now have quit my teaching job. I have transformed my life. If you didn't catch the last video, I'm going to go ahead and link it above, and I'll also drop it down in the description below. In that video, I talk a little bit about how long it took me to get my shop rolling and started. It'll give you a good idea of the amount of time, energy, and effort that you need to put in on the front end in this business model. And then I go through my numbers for this past Q4. Q4 is October, November, and December, and it's the most profitable time. If you do everything right throughout the year, you will make once over again what you made January through September. And I did just that this past Q4 and my first Q4 the year before. Less than 3 months ago, I did an interview with Cassie Johnson, and I'll go ahead and put that down in the description as well if you want to check her out or that interview out. And in that interview, I had just sold $295,000 revenue. Now, it's not profit, that's revenue, had come through my shop, $295,000. And we were just going into Q4. Here I sit filming this video for you, and it is less than 3 months since that interview. And now my shop is at $534,900 revenue. So in just less than 3 months, it's the first week of January right now as I'm filming this. That is $239,900 revenue coming through the shop in less than 3 months. And I just want to point out that that is nearly the entire amount of revenue that I had from October of 2020 when I opened my shop to coming into this past Q4 of 2020. That in just 3 months, I nearly made that same amount of revenue all over again in just those 3 months. This is a 3-part series. Today we're covering the listing strategy, but to know more about really how this all works together, I encourage you to watch the ad strategy, and most importantly, the next video after the ad strategy is going to be the concept of momentum in your shop, which is a big part of this. So we're going to talk about how that happened. How did I get so much revenue passing through my shop in such a short amount of time? This is going to be a 3-part series. This video is going to be all about the listing strategy. And this listing strategy that I used going into Q4 is the same listing strategy that I'm using right now as we begin the new year. We're going to cover 2 things that comprise the listing strategy. And they're really not secrets, but I'll give you the specifics of how I executed them. We're going to talk about the number of listings that I had up for Q4 in order to achieve the success that I achieved. And we're also going to talk about what I call sticky noodle listings. So first, let's talk about the number of listings. It makes sense that the more listings you have, the more items you have for people to purchase, the more sales you're likely to get. And that is definitely one of the strategies that I've used in my shop. Now, I'm going to tell you how many listings I put out for Christmas this past year, and I've already shared in my last video that I'd like to have 2,000 new listings for my shop this year. But I also want to just say that wherever you're at in this process, this is not where I started. This is now my full-time job. And it's been my full-time job for the last 6 months. I was building this while still teaching. So wherever you're at, don't feel overwhelmed. If what you can do is 20 listings a week, then do those 20 listings. In 2020, when I had just opened the shop, I did about 40 listings that were for Christmas. I made 1 sale for Christmas. And then in 2021, I probably had between 150 and 200 Christmas listings, and I did much better. In November, I had made about $6,000 profit in 2021. I was so overjoyed, I was crying and absolutely ecstatic. This past Christmas, I put out 500 new listings. And in November, I made $27,000 profit. So it really compounded as I added listings and got more and more listings up. I started putting these Christmas listings out in July. Yes, July. And the listings that were, I already had some traffic coming through my shop buying Christmas things this past July. And those were things that I had already sold the year before, which is another really cool thing about this business model. If you're selling something for a holiday, and it's hard the first time you're that first year when you're first collecting all of your listings and you're putting your things out, first of all, a lot of times you're late to the game because it's your first year and you're still designing Valentine's Day stuff when you should already be designing your St. Patrick's Day stuff. And so not only are you often late to the game that first year, but you don't have any sales under your belt in your shop for that holiday. But once you dig in a little bit to that holiday and you make some sales, it's easier the following year. And so it compounds very quickly once you start getting moving. So this past year, I put those 500 listings out. I started in July, and I kept listing right up until the weekend of Black Friday. And then it's too late. You want to stop because people don't have a time to find your listing, which takes a little while for it to work its way into the algorithm, and then to also get it shipped to them in time for Christmas. I want to clarify the difference between a listing and a design. I did not get 500 designs up for Christmas. I got 500 listings up. Designs, I probably had around 200 designs. Once I get a listing together and I have my mock-up photos and my SEO and all of that, I will often A/B test two things. So when you do an A/B test with your listings, and this strategy is one of the main things that has helped me gain traction in my shop and learn over time what is working in my shop. A/B testing is where you test just one thing, like a science experiment. You're only allowed to change one of the variables. So some of the variables you could change is your SEO. And another variable you could change is your mock-up photos. And these are the two things that I like to A/B test. So I'll create a design and I will put it on my mock-up photos, but maybe I've got a live model mock-up photo and a flat lay mock-up photo that I have reason to believe will both do well. And I will go through and maybe with, all of these designs that I'm putting together, I will put them all on these two mock-ups, and then I'll duplicate all of the listings that these different designs are on, pull one of the mock-ups to the front. So maybe in the front of all of them, I have the live model mock-up, and then duplicate all of them, and then put the flat lay mock-up in the front. The flat lay ones are just with the flat shirt with no person. And then I'll let both of those go, and I'll kind of just watch and see which ones are doing best. Is it the ones with the flat lay, or is it the ones with the model mock-up? And then I know to use that mock-up more often and to use it at the front as my main thumbnail for that listing. The other way to A/B test is through testing your SEO. So you sit down and you collect several sets of SEO that should work well for your listings. This was so incredibly worth the effort last year, and I did it again this year, and it worked out great. But I went into this year with so much knowledge because of last year's A/B test. And I would take the same designs. There's this one listing that I did last year in 2021. It did so great, and it earned me half the money that I earned during the Christmas season. Half of it came from just this one listing. And I listed that same listing 3 times. They all had the same mock-up photos, but I had changed the sets of SEO. Each set was quite different. Now that's hard to do with all things. I haven't been doing that with my Valentine's Day stuff that I've been working on the last week and a half. I just did one set of SEO, but for Christmas it was a lot easier for me. I had 3 sets of SEO, and that Christmas, in 2021, last Christmas, one set took off. And specifically this one design, I made no money on it with two of the others, but I made, over the course of November and December, $6,000 profit from one of those listings with one of those sets of SEO. And of course I doubled down on that this year, and I used that set of SEO in a bunch of my listings. So this was an incredibly great piece of how I've built the business by A/B testing. That's definitely worth your time in a niche like Christmas. That covers the number of listings, and now let's talk about what a sticky noodle listing is. I really didn't start getting the concept of what I call a sticky noodle listing until probably maybe 7 or 8 months into my shop. That's when it started to grow. Maybe it had something to do with that. And I continue to get better and better at it as I go. A sticky noodle listing is a listing that just has a much better chance to convert into a sale for you. And the way that we're going to do sticky noodle listings is we're going to niche down. So a niche is a kind of subcategory of a larger category. And you could keep niching down and getting further and further into subcategories. So for example, we've got Christmas. With Christmas, we can niche down and target someone who loves cats in Christmas. So maybe it says Meowie Christmas, or loves dogs in Christmas. So maybe it could say Happy Holidays. And then we can niche down further by targeting a couple and have a mock-up photo with 2 shirts on it, and have 2 different funny holiday puns about dogs and Christmas on the 2 shirts there. So that would be a better way of making Christmas designs other than saying Merry Christmas. So I'm going to show you some examples from my shop the first year. So that first year I did these farm fresh shirts. It was popular in 2020, and they continue to be popular. I saw them this year as well, and I went all in farm fresh. Here are some examples of best sellers that were doing really well. The designs that I made were not better than these and did not add any value or difference in the market. There was no rhyme or reason to my designs. They were not special. They were not niched down any further than this. As I'm chatting about this, be thinking about how you could niche down. I'm going to show you some ideas in just a few minutes. But be kind of thinking right now, how could you niche this further down? So I told you that I only sold one Christmas design that year. I accidentally niched down, and these mock-ups are terrible that I was using. Just terrible because they don't look natural at all. So it was another mistake. But this was accidentally niched down. I did a pink Christmas tree, and this is the only one that I sold. I sold it one time. I accidentally niched down because I didn't even realize that that was a niche. I just liked the pink Christmas tree, so I used it. So don't let the different lighting throw you off. My lighting looks, I think, pretty different now. Tucker knocked everything down, my little dog Tucker, because a peacock came to the back door and he dashed back there and nearly knocked my computer down on the floor along with the lights. All right, back to Etsy listings. So if you're anything like I was that Christmas about 2 years ago, or even last Christmas, you might be thinking, well, what else can we do? How can we niche this down further? Now, we can take this design and we can aim it towards professions. I've got a great example here of a nurse shirt that was selling really well. And because I don't have a nursing background, I don't know all about this, but I know it has something to do with oxygen, for a tool that a nurse would use. And perhaps we could have taken 3 of these graphics and placed them on the shirt, kind of like the format that we see in the Farm Fresh, and done a nurse version of this. Another way to niche down is to target a hobby or an interest. So here I kind of tried to collect some examples that would give you more ideas in this direction. This was super clever with the little cakes, the little Christmas cakes version of this. I thought this one was another super clever take on this Farm Fresh idea here. Now, I would be very careful about using anything that had to do with movies or TV shows. I did check USPTO website where you can check for trademarked phrases, and Griswold and Co. are not trademarked, but this kind of walks the line of possibly what would be protected under copyright. I just wanted to throw that bit of caution out, especially if you're a newer viewer and you haven't seen information yet about how to check for trademarks and about how copyrights work. Just wanted you to be aware. And this design also gives me another idea of possibly maybe putting someone's last name and letting people personalize it with their last name, which makes it a group listing, because then you have a shot of selling multiple shirts in one order, because the whole family would probably be purchasing that to wear together. Another way to make your listing that much stickier is to incorporate trending elements. And that's that last bulleted point there, where you kind of incorporate things that are super popular and selling well. This year, we've got a lot of retro vibe, 70s stuff selling well, and that's going to continue to sell well. Here we have a nice example of the Farm Fresh design done up with a very 70s retro with the muted kind of greens and the reds and the fonts that are used there. Another thing that has been trending this past Christmas especially is the buffalo plaid. So here's a nice example of this design done up with the buffalo plaid design elements. Let's go back up and talk for a second about aiming this design at professions. This is a design that someone had already come up with. It's selling well. Some other people did other versions of it. I thought it was just brilliant. Treetops glisten and children listen to nothing. Children literally don't listen to anything. Now, they did that kind of farm fresh look on this. I know the words don't say farm fresh, but that kind of has that look at it. And this is such a cool design because you can aim this at teachers. So you could do a whole set of SEO for teachers on this. I know as a teacher, I would have loved to have worn this shirt. You could aim it at moms, so a different set of SEO that's Christmassy and for moms. You could do this aimed at anyone that works with children. So you could do another set of SEO that maybe is aimed toward daycare workers or toward bus drivers, or, you'd have to sit down and brainstorm some ideas for people who work with kids. Now we could take this design and we can go even further with it. We could scale it out to say something different. And this is even better than doing the same phrase, your own version of this same phrase, because you're adding something new and valuable to the market. So something like treetops glisten and patients listen to nothing. Patients literally listen to nothing. So that could be aimed at maybe nurses or someone that works with patients. And you could take children out and try to think of other words that you could put instead of children. So for example, we could niche this down further and aim it toward couples. So perhaps that would look something like one shirt says, treetops glisten and husbands listen to nothing. And then the husband's shirt might say, treetops glisten and wives listen to nothing. However, if I were going to do this in my shop, I'd probably make the husband's shirt a little different and make it play off the wife's shirt in a different way. So I'd use the same graphic and maybe say something like, "What, honey?" or something along those lines. Another way to make your listing super duper sticky is by customizing or personalizing it. So check this little silly one I did out of Tucker. And you could put an offering in your shop that either lets them put a picture of a person or a pet in place of maybe one of the Christmas trees, or somehow incorporate that into the graphic. And this one here says, where the treetops glisten and Tucker listens to nothing. Tucker literally listens to nothing. And yes, personalizing things and customizing things in this way is more work. I don't put very many listings in my shop currently with this option to customize in this way, because it is time consuming, but it is something that I did very systematically in the beginning, and it's a great way to get started and get yourself in the algorithm and get yourself starting to sell in a certain niche. So here it would be, maybe pet owners and Christmas niche that you kind of be digging your way into if you could make some sales off of a listing that you created like this. And we are going to end this video today with a tip from Tucker, so stick around so you hear that tip. And that brings me to my very last example. One more example for you of how you can make a very sticky noodle listing by niching this concept down. And you're going to think I'm super cheesy with this one. As I sat here thinking about this idea and how to niche this design down, I started to think, what could look like a Christmas tree? What could have a shape of a Christmas tree? And then I thought a wedge of cheese. So I came up with this silly design, farm fresh Christmas cheese, brie, cheddar, Swiss down at the bottom. And you could do this with lots of different items if you just sit and brainstorm, what could look like a Christmas tree. I really hope these examples were helpful in helping to build a better understanding of what I mean by a sticky noodle listing. This type of thinking has really played a big part in making my shop grow. It took me a while to really kind of figure this out. And as you know, as I mentioned in my first video, it took me 7-8 months to really gain any traction. But, once you figure out how to gain some traction and add new value to the market in these ways that I've kind of been going over, you'll see that over a little bit of time, you'll start to gain traction also. So I encourage you to not just, make more of the farm. I'm not saying go make farm fresh designs like this. I'm saying use these concepts and try to apply them to something else. As I'm, filming this video, and it'll be airing in about a week. I'm filming this in early January. It'll be airing probably late January, and you should be kind of preparing right now for St. Patrick's Day if you watch this when it comes out. And maybe you can apply this to some designs you're seeing for St. Patrick's Day, this type of thinking, and maybe a way to make a sticky noodle design for St. Patrick's Day. The next video will be about the ad strategy that I used during Q4 and continue to use as we start the new year. Can't wait to share that with you. And if you missed the last video just about how I got the shop started and how long it kind of took to get going, you might want to catch it. I'll go ahead and link it up above, and I'll also put it down in the description below. I'd love to hear a comment from you. If there was something we discussed today that you'd love to hear more about, please let me know. I'm looking for content to share with you, things that you are interested in hearing in your Etsy journey right now. And if you're still here, thank you so much for staying to the end of the video. If you found value from this video, please don't forget to smash that like button. And if you're not subscribed, I'd love to have you subscribe if you want to hear more content like this. And we're going to end this video with a tip from Tucker.